uprising and its aftermath. Here's a look at the trials of spring.
الروح كانت جميلة وطبعا كان وقتها الواحد كانش يفكر في ايه اللي جاي بعدين.
Now that Mubarak stepped down, what's your first wish? And I was like, end sexual harassment. Every Egyptian woman can be assaulted at any time. And all what prevails is impunity.
Joining us now, the film's executive producer, Abigail Disney, and its director, Ginny Redeker. Thank you very much, both of you.
So from Mubarak to the Muslim Brotherhood, and then from the Muslim Brotherhood to Sisi, how have things gone for women's rights over that arc?
Pretty much the same. It doesn't really change whether it's a fundamentalist regime or a militaristic regime or a repressive regime. It kind of comes out the same for the women. So they're sort of a barometer of how things are going from a human rights perspective.
And what do we see in this in terms of the stories of the women that you're weaving through it? Give us a sense of how bad the situation is, what they endure, and what they're fighting for.
Well, you know, I think that all the women that we talked to started out really thinking that they were fighting for the same thing that everybody else was, which is freedom, justice, and bread, economic abilities. And we started out the project thinking that we were making a film about triumph, a project about triumph, and we started following them, and the main character gets arrested in the early days in a demonstration against the military, and her trial ends up taking place through all the three different regimes. So we follow her. Yeah, it just kept getting postponed and postponed, and then when Sisi came back into power and the Brotherhood was over, anybody who had any opposition at all was now labeled a terrorist, and her trial was switched to the terrorism court, and she was actually convicted, sentenced in absentia to a life in prison. But she wasn't there, and in Egypt, if you're in absentia, they have to come and get you and bring you into the court to actually incarcerate you, and she managed to slip out of the country.
We were talking about this a little bit before we went out of there. This is a 3-year-plus project. I think you probably went into it thinking it was going to be something maybe that it wasn't. At what point did you guys recognize as filmmakers that this wasn't going to be a happy story, a story with a great ending necessarily, or at least not yet? Was there a specific point or a specific moment that you guys sat back and went, okay, this isn't going where we thought it was?
It's really nice to have a happy ending. We thought we'd have a happy ending. I kind of preferred, but yeah, about when Morsi was arrested and there was a slaughter of the protesters, about 850 people were slaughtered. That's when we knew things were going very far south. And you know, the sexual assaults in the square started almost right away. And on International Women's Day, there was just a really deliberate targeting of women. In both cases, by both regimes. So it's been a long, slow deterioration, but that was an abrupt moment of real recognition.
It's interesting because you usually think military regimes, even if thuggish, are not going to be as oppressive as, say, the Muslim Brotherhood towards women's rights. I mean, there are examples of how it's a secularizing force,
right.
But not here, huh?
Well, I mean, I think that basically what happens is that women become it's almost like women's bodies become a battleground. So what was happening is like no one did anything to protect the women because it was an easy thing to make a political hay over.
Yeah.
So they could say that they were going to do something about it, but basically they let the situation deteriorate.
The Trials of Spring premieres at the Human Rights Watch Film Festival this Friday. Abigail Disney and Ginny Redeker, congratulations.
It looks
Thank you
great.
very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still ahead, we showed you the Daily Show's takedown.